Fear not. The mountain quail, Oreotix ricta, I often meet in my walks, a small brown partridge with very long, slender, ornamental crest worn jauntily like a feather in a boy's cap, giving it a very marked appearance. This species is considerably larger than the valley quail, so common on the hot foothills. They seldom alight in trees, but love to wander in flocks of from 5 or 6 to 20 through the ceanothus and manzanita thickets, or over open dry meadows and rocks of the ridges where the forest is less dense or wanting, uttering a low clucking sound to enable them to keep together. When disturbed they rise with a strong burr of wing beats and scatter as if exploded to a distance of a quarter of a mile or so. After the danger is past they call one another together with a louder piping note, nature's beautiful mountain chickens. I have not yet found their nests. The young of this season are already hatched and away, new broods of happy wanderers half as large as their parents. I wonder how they live through the long winters when the ground is snow-covered, 10 feet deep. They must go down towards the lower edge of the forest like the deer, though I have not heard of them there. The blue or dusky grouse is also common here. They like the deepest and closest fir woods, and, when disturbed, burst from the branches of the trees with a strong loud whir of wing beats, and vanish in a wavering silent slide, without moving a feather. A stout, beautiful bird, about the size of the prairie chicken of the Old West, spending most of the time in the trees, excepting the breeding season, when it keeps to the ground. The young are now able to fly. When scattered by man or dog, they keep still till the danger is supposed to be past. Then the mother calls them together. The chicks can hear the call a distance of several hundred yards, though it is not loud. Should the young be unable to fly, the mother feigns desperate lameness or death to draw one away, throwing herself at one's feet within 2 or 3 yards, rolling over on her back, kicking and gasping, so as to deceive man or beast. They are said to stay all the year in the woods hereabouts, taking shelter in dense tufted branches of fir and yellow pine during snowstorms, and feeding on the young buds of those trees. Their legs are feathered down to their toes, and I have never heard of their suffering in any sort of weather. Able to live on pine and fir buds, they are for ever independent in the matter of food, which troubles so many of us and controls our movements. Gladly, if I could, I would live for ever on pine buds, however full of turpentine and pitch, for the sake of this grand independence. Just to think of our sufferings last month merely for gristmill flour. Man seems to have more difficulty in gaining food than any other of the Lord's creatures. For many in towns it is a consuming, lifelong struggle. For others the danger of coming to want is so great, the deadly habit of endless hoarding for the future is formed, which smothers all real life, and is continued long after every reasonable need has been oversupplied. On Mount Hoffman I saw a curious dove-coloured bird that seemed half woodpecker, half magpie or crow. It screams something like a crow, but flies like a woodpecker, and has a long straight bill, with which I saw it opening the cones of the mountain and white-barked pines. It seems to keep to the heights, though no doubt it comes down for shelter during the winter, if not for food. So far as food is concerned, these bird mountaineers, I guess, can glean nuts enough, even in winter, from the different kinds of conifers, for always there are a few that have been unable to fly out of the cones, and remain for hungry winter gleaners. August 2nd. Clouds and showers, about the same as yesterday. Sketching all day on the North Dome until 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, when, as I was busily employed thinking only of the glorious Yosemite landscape, trying to draw every tree and every line and feature of the rocks, I was suddenly and without warning possessed with the notion that my friend, Professor J.D. Butler of the State University of Wisconsin, was below me in the valley, and I jumped up full of the idea of meeting him, with almost as much startling excitement as if he had suddenly touched me to make me look up. Leaving my work without the slightest deliberation, I ran down the westward slope of the dome and along the brink of the valley wall, looking for a way to the bottom, until I came to a side cañon, which, judging by its apparently continuous growth of trees and bushes, I thought might afford a practical way into the valley, and immediately began to make the descent, late as it was, as if drawn irresistibly. But after a while common sense stopped me, and explained that it would be long after dark ere I could possibly reach the hotel, that the visitors would be asleep, that nobody would know me, that I had no money in my pockets, and, moreover, was without a coat. I therefore compelled myself to stop, and finally succeeded in reasoning myself out of the notion of seeking my friend in the dark, whose presence I only felt in a strange telepathic way. I succeeded in dragging myself back through the woods to camp, never for a moment wavering, however, in my determination to go down to him next morning. This, I think, is the most unexplainable notion that ever struck me. Had someone whispered in my ear while I sat on the dome where I had spent so many days that Professor Butler was in the valley, I would not have been more surprised and startled. When I was leaving the university he said, "Now, John, I want to hold you in sight and watch your career. Promise to write me at least once a year." I received a letter from him in July, at our first camp in the Hollow, written in May, in which he said he might possibly visit California sometime this summer, and therefore hoped to meet me. But inasmuch as he named no meeting place and gave no directions as to the course he would probably follow, and as I should be in the wilderness all summer, I had not the slightest hope of seeing him, and all thought of the matter had vanished from my mind until this afternoon, when he seemed to be wafted bodily almost against my face. Well, tomorrow I shall see, for, reasonable or unreasonable, I feel I must go. August 3. Had a wonderful day. Found Professor Butler as the needle compass finds the pole. So last evening's telepathy, transcendental revelation, or whatever else it may be called, was true. For, strange to say, he had just entered the valley by way of the Coulterville trail, and was coming up the valley past El Capitan, when his presence struck me. Had he then looked towards the North Dome with a good glass when it first came in sight, he might have seen me jump up from my work and run toward him. This seems the one well-defined marvel of my life, of the kind called supernatural, for, absorbed in glad nature, spirit rappings, second sight, ghost stories, etc., have never interested me since boyhood, seeming comparatively useless and infinitely less wonderful than nature's open, harmonious, songful, sunny, everyday beauty. This morning, when I thought of having to appear among tourists at a hotel, I was troubled because I had no suitable clothes, and at best am desperately bashful and shy. I was determined to go, however, to see my old friend after 2 years among strangers, got on a clean pair of overalls, a cashmere shirt, and a sort of jacket, the best my camp wardrobe offered, tied my notebook on my belt, and strode away on my strange journey, followed by Carlo. I made my way through the gap discovered last evening, which proved to be Indian Cañon,